slice. So slice is one function method, right? And we have options like substring. Substring is another method, and substr. Substr is another one. And these three are very important to understand in because in interviews regularly this question is asked, like, what is difference between, so what is the difference between slice, substring, and substr? Actually, so we need to know the difference between that, because all three look similar only. For example, they are used to extract the string. Suppose let's create a simple slice. Okay, I'm creating a simple script here and a function, and here we are calling the function, and we are writing here, so the variable, suppose MSG, some welcome to JavaScript something. Now here we want to access only a specific portion of the string. So then what we can do is, so document dot write, we can use MSG dot, we have slice. So from 6 and to 10, slice from 6 to 10, like this we are giving. That means from the starting index to ending index. Now when we run this, that means it is going to slice from 6 to 10, including the space also it will do. So if I give slice only starting index, then you can see it is going to slice from that index to end, up to the end. Slice is going to extract up to the end if you give only starting index. If you give ending index, so and sum of 12, it will read up to that ending index. So otherwise it will read up to the end, Suppose I given so 6, 0. That means, so that will be a problem. It's not there. Why? Because this is the starting index, and the ending index must be the greater than starting index. So that means it can always read towards the right side only. It cannot read towards the left. That means it can read. It can read from the position to right side. It cannot come left side. So slice actually use here substring. Substring is there. Substring, if I give 6, directly 6, then it will read from 6 to end. It will read from 6 to end. If I return 6, some 3, like this, that means it will read towards the left side. So suppose I given 0, that will read towards the left side. That means it can go back, go left and go right. It can read in any direction from 6 to back index and fro index. So that is substring actually. There is another option, substr. So substr, so when you define this substr and define this. You see now, it's not working. It's not working backside. Sub-STR is not working backside. Suppose I said 6 to 12. It is reading 6 to 12. So, but observe carefully, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it is going more than that. Actually, the concept is sub-STR also reads. Suppose I give only 6, it also reads. That means sub-STR is reading from 6 to end. So that means it is going to read from 6 to end. 11, 12. That means it will be up to here. 12 means, so but it is reading like this. Actually, it will not have an end index number actually. It will not have an end index number. So substring will have a negative value. Suppose I given -6, something like this, negative. So when you give negative, it is going to read from the end 6. From the end 6. That means from right side, it can read like this. It can read like this. So that means it can use a negative value for reading from the right side. Substring cannot use a negative value. Substring cannot read a negative value. But sub-STR is used with a negative value. It can use a negative value to read from the end. From the end. So you cannot say that right side. So that means suppose some 4. That means from right side, it will be 4 characters. It will read 4 characters from the right side. Right side, 4 characters. So substring is not like that. What it can do is, it can read up to specific index. Specific index. That means, so 6. 6 to back how many? Length you can mention. So how many characters? That means I said 6 to 0. Substring. So we have to define string, substring. So then it is going to read that. So sub-STR cannot do that. Sub-STR cannot do that. Sub-STR cannot do that. Sub-STR is using a negative value. So, or I said here 6, I said 2. That means from 6, it will read 2. So from 6, it will read 2. That means E and empty space. It will read 2. So I said 3. That means from 6, it will read 3 characters. From 6, it will read some 6 characters. From 6, it will read 6 characters like that. That means it's not index number, it's length. How many characters from 6? So splice uses actually, what is the point about slice? So first one, slice uses start and end index. Slice uses start and end index. So for example, how you define? So your string dot slice, you can define 6, 10. 6, 10. And another point is, so if you are defining slice, so slice, and you configured, so here suppose 10, 4. So this is not valid, or you simply say 6, 0. This is not valid. Not valid. That means the end index must be greater than, so it's not valid. So that is the point about slice. Another one is substring. So it can read the values. So towards end or beginning of string, towards the end or beginning of string. It can read towards the end or beginning of string. That means, so we have string, we have substring, and we can give 6 to 12, something like this. Or you can write here string, substring, 6 to 0 here. And sub str, it is nothing but, so it can read the value. So from specified index to the length of characters. So that means here we have define string dot sub str, and you can see 6 and 5, so or 6 and some 10. So this indicates that, so starting from 6, it can read 10 characters. So starting from 6, it can read 10 characters. That is what actually substring. It can use negative value also. Sub str, so -6. That means reads 6 characters. So from end. So that is the concept how you can manage. These are all the string related extracting functions actually. So string, substring, sub str, these are all the options. So this is a simple example. Later we will see several other examples also. So this is a general example. So I am not giving any example on this because just syntax, because we will learn in later stage working with different examples. Of course, you can try them and use them in different occasions. So for that, we need to learn some more concept. As of now, it doesn't have a proper concept of examples yet because we are in the just few beginning options also. That is what I am saying. Neeraj Chaudhary. Again, you are excited. I think yesterday only I told you. You don't listen to me. You don't listen to me. That means you are in your own wavelength. You never come to my track. That's you are on your own, thinking everything by yourself. You don't want to listen to anybody in the world. Listen what I'm talking, man. So then you will understand. Only one word you people know. In real time, where to use. Don't be so silly, man, every time. That is what we are going to learn. That's where we are going to handle. Yeah, let's see now. Suppose here we are defining a simple option like a substring. Okay. And in the body section, we are writing. So email, I'm entering here. Input type is equal to text. And ID, txt email. Then here we are defining some button, some submit. So here on click is equal to get details. Okay, so here I am writing a script and a function. So get details, that is the function. And here we are collecting the email entered. So that is document get element by ID, txt email. dot value. We are accessing the email. Now here, whatever the email we entered. So what I want is, so whatever email he entered, so I need to get the email ID. So email ID, and I want to display that email ID. So where email ID. So email ID. So I want to get that email ID. So and display that. Actually, email ID means, for example, in the text box, user entered so some string like so John _ NIT@gmail.com. So this is email address. And I hope you know, in this email address, this is called email ID. This is ID. The complete is called email address. I want to get only the email ID, not @gmail.com. And I want to just show him your ID is this. Now tell me how to extract. So how to extract only ID from address? Tell me how we can do. What function you will do? So actually, remember, I am saying that get the ID of any email address. Any email address, that means some may be more than 8 characters, 10 characters, am I right? So how we can extract that? So how we can extract that? Actually, because see, sometimes it will be like hr@nareshit.in. It can be a different email address. Any email address they can type, not only Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Gmail or anything. I want to get only ID. Understood the concept? Understood everyone? Right. So that means then technically what we have to do first, we have to get the position separately. I am writing. We have to get at position. Am I right? At the net position. So how to get the at the net position? Where at the net is present? We have to get at the net position. How to get at the net position? How to get at the net position? That means I want to know the position of at the net. So we can use email dot index of at the net. It will get the at the net position. From that position, I need to read up to the beginning. Am I right? Where ID is equal to, from that position, I need to read up to beginning. What do you say now? Email dot, can I use substring? So at position to 0. Am I right? Understood? From at position to 0. You can use in several ways. Am I right? From the at position to 0, we have to access that. Now document dot write. So here we will print here. So your ID is, or your ID, simply whatever the ID is defined there. That means here I am defining like some john@gmail.com, submit. So your ID is John. And I entered some John_NIT some yahoo.com, and it has to get only the ID. Understood? Only ID. Now, how do I get the domain? Domain means, that means your ID is this, and I want to get the domain also. Domain means where they have created the email. Is it Gmail? Is it Yahoo Mail? Is it some other website? How you get the domain name? We need to get the domain name also. Then how we can access and how we can get the domain name? How to get and how we can access the domain name generally. So what is the point here? So generally, to access and define the domain name, so configuring and specifying the domain name, you can write like this: where domain is equal to email dot substring at position +1. At position +1, because at position is also read. That means it reads the position of @ also. I don't want that. I want after that. Then +1. That means at position +1 means if at position is 6, it will be 7. Why? Because at is also included actually. We don't want to include. So +1. So I am writing here. So the ID is defined. And here we are configuring in the next line. Yeah, in the next line, I'm saying domain, your ID, or say registered at. So we have to read that. So registered at, okay, we have to read that. Then we can just use, so domain. That's how we need to access. We need to separate that and use it. Now, so here I am entering some John NIT and click on submit. It should get that and display. So we are separating, right? And that is NIT@yahoo.com. That is the point. Right. So this is generally extracting the values and using the values depending on situation, depending on requirement, how we can configure them. So we need to find the index numbers. We need to access the value and use the value. That is generally done by using this string. So these are some important string handling related methods you need to know. Later, while working, some more type of examples you will see and handle and deal with them. Others are not required for us, right? So some more options we will see how to deal with them and how do we work with them in the later stage. Initially, this is the primitive types, how you can configure, how you can define and work with the primitive types. So, and dealing with the primitive types. So next, after understanding the primitive types, now we need to know about the JavaScript non-primitive types. So working with the JavaScript non-primitive types. So generally non-primitive types, what are non-primitive types and how we deal with them? So non-primitive types, already we learned that basically they are mutable types. That means their structure can change dynamically. Structure can change dynamically. That's what actually mutable types. And so no fixed range for value, So usually value range will change according to memory available. That's what actually the type. The value range will change according to the memory available. And JavaScript, so non-primitive types are, so we have an array. So we have an object, and generally we have a regular expression, and these are the basic non-primitive types. Some objects are present, different data structures are present. Now recently we have the options like map. So we have option like set, but set is no longer available. We don't use that. It is deprecated now. We use these maps only. So these are used as non-primitive types, configured as non-primitive types. Now how these non-primitive types works and what is the concept of the non-primitive types. Right? So the point is simple. So they don't have any fixed range for value. The value range will change according to the memory available. So the basic non-primitive types that we have are arrays, objects, and all. How to use them, we will see. Generally, so the first important array, actually in computer programming, what is the role of array? How do we define and work with the array? We will see that. Actually, in computer programming, arrays are used to reduce overhead and complexity. Arrays are used to reduce overhead and complexity. That is the main concept of array actually. So generally your other technologies may teach you about arrays like Java, like C++, like .NET. So the concept of array in any technology is same. The point is to reduce overhead and to reduce complexity. Actually, overhead is nothing but generally, what is overhead? For example, I will show you a small concept is usually earlier in computing devices, data in computing devices, or you can say in electronic devices. Data in electronic devices in early days, we used to store data. We used to store data in magnetic tapes actually. Magnetic tape. So we used to store data in a magnetic tape. Data is stored in a magnetic tape, early days. You might have seen, even I hope you might have experienced of using tape recorders, so VCR like things earlier, right? I am talking about the situation before the concept of CDs and floppies. So we need to store data in magnetic tape. Actually, data is stored in magnetic tapes. Early days, we use these magnetic tapes. Then we don't have any problem because in magnetic tape, what happens is the data is stored in the tape in an order, like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, like order it will be stored. And generally, there will be a read-write head actually. There will be a read-write head. So this is a general read-write head. This read write head can read that in a sequential order. That means actually the tape rotates from left to right, right to left. Then it reads. I hope you have seen tape recorders and all. So you cannot play any song directly what you want. You have to rewind. You have to rewind and play the song again if you want. So this, because it happens in a sequential order. It happens in a sequential order. So that is the point. But the problem started when we started using disk-like devices like floppy, CD, hard disk like devices. In these devices, what happens is majority of you people know that the CD, floppy, hard disk will be in this way. Inside that, data will be stored in actually tracks and sectors. That means